As everybody take their seats. We're ready to go. So this is our 2025 year-end press conference, Advancing Safety Across St. Louis. It's reducing violence and strengthening neighborhoods. As we get started here, I want to introduce everybody that's up here at the tables, and then we're also going to have opening remarks from Mayor Cara Spencer and also the President of the Board of Police Commissioners, Chris Saracino. So as I go from my right to the left, we have Lieutenant Colonel Renee Kriesman, who oversees Bureau of Operations. I have Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Cousins, who oversees support operations, and then I have Lieutenant Colonel Eric Lawson, who is the head of Crime Control Strategies, which does our CompStat intelligence and real-time crime center, amongst a lot of other things. As you know, the Honorable Mayor Cara Spencer, President of our police board is Chris Saracino. Major Janice Boxtra, who's the acting commander of the Office of Professional Standards. You have Major Joe Marisi. Joe is the Chief of Staff out of the Chief's Office of St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. After him, you have Major Michael Mueller, who's the head of our Special Operations Divisions, which would be SWAT, it would be K-9, it would be anti-crime, mobile, traffic, all those other things, parks, park rangers. So Mike has a lot of things underneath him as well. You have Major Donnell Moore, who's the commander of North Patrol. You have Major Pierre Benoist, who's the major of Central Patrol. And when it comes to North Patrol, that's the 5th and 6th district. When it becomes the Central Patrol, that's the 3rd and 4th district. And then we have Christy Marks, Major Christy Marks, who oversees the 1st and 2nd district and South Patrol. We have Lieutenant John Blaskowitz, incredible job as our homicide commander. We got already an 84% homicide clearance rate for 2025, so thank you, John, the work that you and your team do. We have Angie Lanneman, who actually assists our director of the lab. She does an incredible job in turning around the evidence and the information that we need to bring this crime down. And then, of course, I think you all know, as our Director of Public Affairs, is Mitch McCoy, who's sitting right towards the end. So when we get into things, I'm going to do a presentation after the opening remarks, and then we're going to have a presentation by the 3 lieutenant colonels, and then we're going to open it up for questions, if that's fair enough. We had an incredible year. We had a lot of things, a lot of progress, but still a lot of work to do. We'll get right into it at this time. I'll call Mayor Cara Spencer up to the podium. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you all for joining us here this morning for an update on the progress that we're seeing in public safety in the city of St. Louis. I think some have been asking, why aren't we talking about the great crime stats in the city of St. Louis? Well, we haven't had this press briefing yet, so here we are. And as we are excited to announce these results here, I think many are still asking, is crime of course still too high? But the progress we are making is truly remarkable. As you can see, once again, the answer is clear. Crime in St. Louis has declined by a truly impressive amount. The St. Louis police officers, our officers have every reason to be incredibly proud of the work they do. Their jobs are challenging, they're dangerous, and yet through this they have been continuing to achieve great results. Last year our homicides were down by a remarkable 45% since the high in 2020, making it the lowest number of homicides since in 12 years. The reasons are many, which is not lost on me, but the progress remains just truly remarkable. One of the main reasons that we're seeing a continued decline is that our police officers are performing well above national averages in actually solving homicides. Blaskowitz Marks, of course, the work our police officers are doing on a regular basis is an absolute key here. The work that Gabe Gore, our Circuit Attorney's Office, is turning around. It means that if you commit a murder in the city of St. Louis, you're going to get caught and you're going to serve the consequences. Chief Tracy is no doubt one of the best chiefs in our nation, and under his leadership, combined with the great work of our police officers and with our community, is a big reason why we're seeing trust in SLMPD continue to grow, which is a critical part of the criminal justice system, making this work, having our victims and our witnesses feel confident in the work our officers and our circuit attorney does is an incredible piece of here. I want to thank the Office of Violence Prevention, which works closely with our communities to partner with to stop retaliatory violence. Working with youth and families. This type of work is incredibly important. I have to give some credit to my predecessor, Mayor Tashara Jones, for initiating that, the Office of Violence Prevention, and an incredible amount of credit to the police department for embracing this work and working with violence prevention mechanisms to actuate it. Finally, as we look back, I really have to give a tremendous amount of thanks to our police department, the officers on the ground, in particular following the May 16th tornado. Not just our officers. Mitch, you were phenomenal during that. It's easy to guess that our crime rates, given this unusual year and the trauma that our community has experienced, that we would expect to see an increase in criminal activity. And we saw the opposite. It's truly been a remarkable year for our city, and the work that our police department has done through this year is second to none. I want to thank everyone, most importantly our officers, the new recruits that are coming in, and all the folks who are serving in a criminal justice and in a public safety capacity for our region, our city. Thank you.
So as I invite the president of the board, I also want to recognize the efforts and the time that we have other commissioners that are here today that are in the back. And their support of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department has been incredible. Commissioner Sonia Jenkins-Gray is here, Commissioner Don Brown, Commissioner Ed McVeigh, Commissioner Brad Ortega. So thank you very much for all the work. And you also have the new board secretary, which is Colin Tully. So thank you, Colin. Our lawyer, Chris Graville, and then also our transition director, Derek Winters, that also has been behind the scenes doing a lot of work. But our leader of the board and of the Board of Commissioners, I'd like to call up right now, President Chris Saracino. Thank you, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you to all the commanders here today. On behalf of the St. Louis Board of Police Commissioners, good morning, and thank you all for being here today. Since our appointment in July, the board has worked diligently to establish a strong structure that allows us to effectively operate and provide meaningful support to the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. Throughout this process, we've remained fully committed to supporting the men and women of this department, both commissioned officers and our professional staff who work tirelessly and remain deeply dedicated to serving the city of St. Louis. In just a few minutes, we'll hear from Chief Tracy highlighting the outstanding work being done by the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. Through his leadership and strategic initiatives, these strategies and goals cannot be achieved without the dedication of our hard work of our men and women and our officers that are on the street every day. Mayor Spencer and the Board of Police Commissioners, who are in the back, are 100% committed to ensuring the department has the training, tools, and the resources necessary to succeed. Our goal is to help operate an efficient department that recruits, retains, and supports the finest officers of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. We firmly believe by the strengthening of recruitment efforts and encouraging men and women to return to this noble profession of law enforcement, that we will increase our officer visibility throughout our city. This in turn will help even achieve greater results that the chief has been doing and providing a safer, healthier city for all neighborhoods. Once again, we remain fully committed to the chief, strategies, and tremendous work being done by the men and women of this department. Day in and day out, they serve the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department and serve our city very proudly and very well. So as the Board of Police Commissioners, we are very committed to this efforts and everything that is going on, fully commit to the chief and to these men and women, the command staff, and to the men and women out on the streets every day. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here this morning, and turn it over back to the chief. Thank you.
Thank you, President Saracino, and thank you, Mayor. You know, as you see, these things get done with leadership. It doesn't get done alone, and it doesn't get done without having a lot of people supporting each other. In policing, we can't do this alone. You heard the mayor talk about all the support units, the support from her leadership and the departments that work in her administration. You talk about the board and the board's commitment to making sure that we can get the tools to go out and do the job and improve off these numbers. We have our leadership here where there's expectations that we give them the tools and resources to go out and then hold them accountable to go out and do that. But this wouldn't get done without the community, wouldn't get done without all these partners, but especially it wouldn't get done without the men and women of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department executing this plan, along with our professional staff. The back of the house professional staff, they do so many things that help our jobs and also help our officers on the street, especially investigations and support, to make sure that we are here today. As the mayor spoke, that, yeah, this is progress, but we certainly have a lot more work to do in the city of St. Louis, but it's going in the right direction. So with that, I just want to start with an opening slide and just talk about, here we are with murders. We talked about 2020, that was the year of the pandemic and civil unrest, came down to 203, 201. First year under 2022 was the year before I took over with these methodologies and the CompStat methodology, leveraging technology, gaining community trust, and having the officers execute an accountability system through a CompStat methodology. Business management principles applied to police work. 160 murders, 151, and here we are standing at 141 at the end of 2025. Right now, we have 5 murders last year versus 1 this year, so we're actually getting off to early, getting off to a good start this year to continue to build on it. But it's not just about the murders. It's very important, and having clearance rates where the people are held accountable. The national average a couple of years ago was 50% in the United States of clearing homicide cases. We're at 84%. And then when it comes to cities that have this type of issues, like the New York, the Chicagos, any place that has gun violence, where 90% of the homicides are by gunshot, they're usually less than 50%. So my hat's off to the detectives, but also the technology. You're going to hear about a whole teamwork of what we're doing to get to where we need to be. Have to reduce the shootings, to reduce the murders, and that's some of the things that we're looking at, and especially with the high volume of guns out there, gunshots, and we're going to get into some of that stuff. So this is where we are right now. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so we go to 2010. We can go back. We've given numbers out to the press that goes back 35 years. We take a look at where we are. We know population was a little higher in years past. We had more police officers in years past, and I'm going to get to that in the next slide. But you can take a look across and see exactly how we've been doing, and the mayor hit on it where it's the lowest in 12 years since 2013. And then if you want to go back, we do have some of that information that Mitch McCoy can put out. Let's go to the next slide. All right. Now this slide is something where you take a look at the green. That's the number of commissioned police officers going back to 1990. We also have the orange, the population of our city. And then blue, you see where the murder numbers are. So you can see this graph, and you can actually see the amount of work that's being done where we are lower in commissioned staff that we've been in probably close to history. And where that's some of the things that's one of our biggest challenges. I know the board, myself, we're working on recruitment, we're looking at pay, we're looking at everything, we're looking at our HR, our hiring processes. These are the type of things that we're all working together to try to bring the numbers up of officers, because as you can see, if we're getting these results with the amount of officers now, could you imagine if we get back up to budgeted strength? We really can improve on some of these things, and I really believe it, and I commend the officers that are here doing it with the amount of officers that we do have and the commissioned staff. So if you could take a look at population, you take a look at, you all know how to read a line graph, but I think this is very impactful to show exactly what we're doing and how we're doing it, and going back across a couple decades. So let's go to the next slide. Shootings. I talked about when you have a city, and like a lot of other cities that have gun violence, if you reduce the shootings, where 90% of your homicides, over 90%, are by gunshot, you have to address the shootings, the trigger pullers, the evidence that's out there, picking up the shell casings, having the lab analyze it, and then correlating those things that we're able to get more evidence, get into things in the hands of our investigators who are very, very good to begin with, and then give them that added evidence, if it is there, to make sure they can give them additional leads. So if you take a look at 2021, 565 incidents of shootings. This is a person where it pierces the skin and is shot. This is not shot-fired incidents where nobody's hit. This is where somebody's hit. 722 in 2022, and then I talk about looking at leveraging technology along and bringing everybody together and turning things around. 554 in 2023, 2024, 586, and 423 shooting incidents last year. So you can see the difference. You're down almost 300 shooting incidents from where we were in 2022. I use 2022 as a baseline because a new methodology came in to add to some of the great stuff that St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department is doing. Down 300 shootings. So that's certainly 300 people, 300 incidents where people are not going to the hospital, the officers are not going calls for service, not putting up the tape, and taking people out from doing other things to help prevent crime and keeping us out there, officers on the street. So 423, great work, and even coming down from 586. You can do the math on those numbers. It's about 160 less shooting than last year. Let's continue. So this is the citywide stats. It's up. We have made sure we're as transparent as possible. This place was one of the most transparent police departments I ever walked into, with the amount of crime that they put out there and shared with the media and academics. And then we just took it further and revamped our website so it was more user-friendly. You can get all these statistics weekly from us, from CompStat sheets. You can get the NIBRS every month. You can get you can geofence things with our crime stat numbers and crime mapping. You can look each day. It's put up to look in your area, your neighborhood. A better informed population and community. It's a safer community because we can work together to look at patterns and trends and try to make sure we can reduce crime even further. But it's not just about murders. We're down 41% in sexual assaults, 15% in robberies, aggravated assaults. And here's the things that when I go to community meetings, and we all go to community meetings, one of the biggest things is we try to make sure we're at every community meeting. These commanders are doing an incredible job being at there, sending their staff, learning what's happening in their unique areas, all part of the city. But the biggest complaint, auto theft, felony theft, burglary, and then we also have aggressive driving and temp tags. So auto theft's down 22%. But if you take a look at the CompStat sheet, you can see it's down almost 50, 60% from where it was. Felony thefts is really theft from a vehicle, and that's down 13%. You're going to see from where we were 3 years ago. And then you look at burglaries, we're down on all those things. We look at everything. We don't forget about it. We prioritize, but we make sure everything's looked at, and we look at patterns and trends, and make sure that we can bring people to justice. And then we are making arrests, and we do make the arrests now with a new circuit attorney that's been here now a little over 2.5 years. Everybody goes to the warrant office. Everybody's looked at to see if they could be charged, and that wasn't the case before 2023. That has helped us immensely as well to hold people accountable and change behavior. Let's go to the next slide. All right. This is the end of the year numbers. I always talk about 2022 being a baseline. What has happened with the CompStat methodologies, the type of things, and how much more we're leveraging the technology and going to the community meetings. If you take a look at 2025 compared to 2022, look at the numbers, down 42% in overall crime in this city. And then if you take a look at the shooting incidents, down 41%, shooting victims 39%. Shooting juvenile, we're cut in half, and we have MOUs with the juvenile courts that we started in 2023, and then we continue, and Judge Stelzer and I talk all the time. We look at ways that we can help these kids, help them to continue to keep them out of harm's way. So down over 50%, and you can see we continue to drive the number down 17 and 16% respectively with juvenile incidents. So a lot of good work. They have responded to this type of methodology, and I'm very, very proud of this police department and proud of the men and women as policemen, both civilian and commissioned. Let's go. I also want to take a look at, listen, bringing events to our city, that's one of the biggest things. It's an economic engine. We just had the U.S. Figure Skating Championships. It was an absolute success. You can ask by the people that participated, the people that ran it, the leadership, the mayor and I were out there talking about what we were going to do. We had the Frozen Four, And then, not to mention all the major sport teams that we do day in, day out. And Major Pierre Benoist oversees that area and does a tremendous job. And then you have protests on top of some of these things. Balancing all those things, we want people to keep coming in, the tax base that's coming in. We don't forget about the rest of the city. I was asked about that question of if people downtown, just like with EF3 tornado, we kept crime down throughout the city as we were servicing that area, those people that needed us the most up in that ravaged area after that natural disaster. And so when you take a look at the numbers, St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, downtown, you can do this, you can bring this up by the 88 neighborhoods. We break down crime every week by the city, by the patrol area, by the district, and then by the 88 neighborhoods. If you take a look at where we were, we're down 11% downtown. Actually, we don't have any murders this year downtown. And then last year, I'm sorry, in 2025. But take a look at 2022. So 2025 versus down 56%. We are bringing crime down. We do need more police officers for omnipresence, but it is doing we are doing what we need to do to keep people safe. That's what brings business in. That's what people, and the exit surveys are showing that. So we got to make sure everybody knows that, and that's something that we need to point out. Those are the statistics. Let's just do downtown west. This is where the soccer stadium is, actually where the district is right now. I mean, where the headquarters is. Look where we are, down 25%, 1 murder versus 8 from this year to last year, and down 56% from 2022. They are doing a tremendous job. The strategies put in place, the execution of those strategies are helping, and also having a circuit attorney that when we make those arrests, they're being held accountable. So that also a good criminal justice, fair criminal justice also helps reducing crime, and also the decisions that our judicial branch are making after that. So those are the things that I really wanted to emphasize on. And now with that, I'm going to call up Lieutenant Colonel Eric Lawson from Bureau of Crime Control Strategies. Lieutenant Colonel.
Thank you, Chief. The Office of Crime Control Strategies is responsible for monitoring patterns and trends that emerge across the city, looking for people, places, and activities where we can have the most impact on crime. We co-chair the weekly CompStat meeting in order to ensure that all bureaus within the department are focusing on the relevant crimes that are occurring. And through this, we leverage technology by utilizing many different technologies. The Real-Time Crime Center is one you often hear most about. Many of you have had the opportunity to see that operation. The part of that is utilizing the camera systems and the license plate readers that are established around the region. The RTC has helped support patrol operations by 497 arrests, resulting in 1,157 charges on individuals. There were 314 vehicles that were recovered relative to those license plate reader hits, and over 109 firearms which were recovered from those vehicles. So that's just one way that the Crime Center helps support patrol operations to ensure that we're utilizing that technology, that resource, leveraging it for greater outcomes. One of the additional things that we do in crime control strategies, we have the Intelligence Bureau, which is intelligence gathering, and part of that is also the Fugitive Apprehension Strike Team in partnership with the United States Marshals Service. They go out and they look for the lack of a better term, the worst of the worst, those individuals who are a serious threat to community safety. And those officers went out this year and made 456 total arrests, including 66 homicide suspects. Those are all persons that Lieutenant Blaskowitz's crew are looking for, wanted for questioning. They've gone out and looked for those individuals and located them, and in the process recovered 99 firearms during those apprehensions. So they're out there every day looking for these individuals and getting them, because we know the sooner we can get them off the street, the less likely they can offend or participate in retaliatory violence, which again, we're trying to bring those violence numbers down. So the chief has talked quite a bit about the shots fired strategy. We showed the CompStat data, why we look at these crimes, why we separate out the injury shootings versus shootings in general. We track a lot of this information regularly. We talk about it several times a week. And this is an example of some of the data that we collect. So from our CAD system, our computer-aided dispatch system, those are the calls that come into 911. We track the number of shots fired calls, and you can see we've had a 30% reduction since 2022 from 6,135 calls for service for shots fired down to 4,313 calls for shots fired. So that's a 30% reduction, as I said, since 2022, and a 14% reduction since 2024. In addition, we also track ShotSpotter because, as we know, oftentimes in some areas of our community, people hear shots, but they're unwilling to call the police or don't think it will do any good. But ShotSpotter is there, and it notifies us even if the citizen doesn't. So we've had also a corresponding reduction in ShotSpotter activations. So the gunshot detection system helps triangulate where shots are being fired, gets us down to the neighborhood, the block, within roughly 25 feet of where the firearm was discharged. It really triangulates that location so we can get there quicker as an agency. We can look for individuals who may have been injured, and we can also collect that evidence. But since 2022, there's been a 24% reduction in ShotSpotter activations. And these numbers do not include our ShotSpotter expansion program. In March of last year, we expanded that down into District 1 and a portion of District 3. But that we're making sure that we're comparing the identical locations that were covered in 2022 through those identical locations in 2025. And then as we move through 2026, when we get to March, we'll aggregate that data to ensure that now that we're covering the same areas and getting the same levels of analysis in that. So we don't have a slide for this next part, but I think what it really needs to be discussed is how we've taken these CompStat principles and focused them on the shooting metrics. So what actually happens is our citizens call or we get a ShotSpotter activation. Officers respond. They do an immediate search of the area. They're looking for those victims. They're looking for damage. They're looking for that ballistic evidence. If they find it, they collect it, they render aid, they take action, we prepare a report. But what we also do is we do what's called a ShotSpotter investigative follow-up. So within usually 24 to 48 hours, a second set of officers go out to that location, they conduct an area canvass, they knock on doors, they do community engagement, engaging with the citizens, looking for those additional metrics or that ballistic evidence that has that may have been missed or not seen at the time, and they follow up. So we're in the community a second time to reassure them and let them know that we're coming out there. And I think we see the measurement of the decline, but we can't really measure how impactful that is. But what I can tell you is that we have seen a significant increase in our shots, leveraging those shots fired investigations, SSINVs. They're up 832% since 2022. So approximately about an additional 6,000 of those follow-ups have been conducted since we've really started focusing on this area of bringing down these shootings, which bringing down the homicides, which is contributing to a safer St. Louis. So what do we do? Well, we collect that ballistic evidence, we mark it, we package it, and then we convey it to our laboratory system. And the laboratory takes that and begins an analysis. And this is a great way for me to segue over to Lieutenant Colonel Cousins, who is the commander of our Support Operations Division and the overall overseer of the great work of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department Crime Lab. Colonel Cousins?
Thank you, sir. This reminds me of a track meet, Chief, where now I got the baton. Thank you very much, Eric. Good morning, everyone. I'm over the support operations, and which is they perform the non-police functions of the police department. And these are the people that you actually don't see. As you see the police officers out there on the street, there are our visible component, but you have people behind the scenes, such as our 911 dispatchers, our lab technicians, and they pretty much take over from what Eric just described. Today I'll go over some of the numbers from our TRU unit, our 911, and our lab. And I'll start with our lab as Eric just described. Once those shell casings are picked up, they're taken to the lab and our forensic units analyze them. And what we're looking for as we work with ATF and our NIBING, which is described as our National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, we put those into that system and it tells us if these guns have been used before. And so far this year, we've had those case leads, which as you can see is 3,306 case leads through October. And last year at this time, it's 3,148. And why October is that's the information that the ATF has provided us this far, and that's what we have at this time. Later on in the year, they'll give us that information, and we have a complete analysis of all those numbers that we have. But those cases link us, when we talk about leads, those leads indicate that this gun has been used in other incidents. And a lot of times that may help us look at, through homicide suspects. For instance, we may have somebody with a weapon, and once the lab analyzes it, it tells us, hey, this gun was used in a murder incident. And so now, John and his detectives start looking at this person, and in a lot of cases last year, it'll help us to identify and solve a homicide. So those are some of the type of work that our unit does behind the scene. And this help us reduce, not only as the chief and Eric has described, it takes off these violent offenders as the chief would describe them, trigger pullers off the street. And these are the people who are increasingly shooting at people. And sometimes, as we previously stated, just because somebody misses or it's not a homicide, it doesn't mean that there's not the intent. So we find those individuals, and that leads us to solving a lot of cases. And the following is just an example of the collaborative work that is done in the city. The officers get these evidence, bring them to the lab processes them so that we could have information and evidence to solve cases, which is then taken over by the circuit attorneys and help them foster these cases. As the chief previously described, there's no one entity that bears the complete burden of solving crime and reducing crime in the city. And as he had described, thank you to Gabe and the circuit attorney prosecutors for those assistance. Last year alone, and moving on with some of the other numbers from the crime lab, total firearms submitted last year was about 2,548. And those are guns that's completely removed from the street and will not be used again. Some of those evidence that we keep at our property custody section, which is also a part of our support operations, and they hold those guns a lot of times until they go to court. The crime lab this year, which was an increase, we also sees PMFs, which is privately made firearms, and those are the guns that people can make at their homes that does not have a serial number. 2025, we see 77 of those. In 2024, we see 39, so that's a substantial increase. We also take in the lab switches, and these are switches that converts semi-automatic weapons to fully automatic. As you are aware, those are even more dangerous. So in 2025, we had 112 of those, and in 2024, we had 122. That's a decrease, and that's due to because of the work that we're doing, also collaborating with our federal partners in prosecuting these individuals, because that is a federal crime. The lab also do drug analysis, and again, fentanyl and meth has been quite prevalent in our society. Last year, they processed 521 cases, and 2024, 520. In meth cases, 2025 were 435, and in 2024, 431. And again, Angie Laneman helps us. Mary Beth is not here. She's our director, and they do a tremendous work as we have recognized. Also under our unit is our 911 center, and that's the 911 dispatchers that you call for services. Last year alone, they did 456 911 calls. And as you can see there, it says 33 non-emergencies. The difference is that 911 calls those are the calls that are immediately handled by our dispatchers. Our non-emergency is for less important calls that either they call you back because they're busy, but those help to keep officers on the street so they don't have to respond to those calls. Our TRU unit, which is our telephone reporting unit, that's the unit that handles through our civilians less important calls. And the importance of this is they handled 11,319 reports last year. And if you look at it based on what the chief has previously told us, with our reduction in our force, that's 11,000 calls that officers would normally have to go on. But because of that TRU unit, they're able to process those information. And those reports are pretty much like your burglaries where there's not a suspect, your auto theft, car break-ins. And in that way, as we move on now to Colonel Creasman's, she be able to keep those officers on the street so they could respond in a more efficient manner to the people and the citizens, and we provide a better service so that we could respond to them in a quicker time. Major Creasman, Colonel Creasman, sorry.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Renee Creasman. I'm a Lieutenant Colonel. I'm over the Bureau of Operations. The Bureau of Operations is kind of the home base and kind of, the heartbeat of this police department. Most of the officers that you see on the street each day are assigned to this bureau. That includes all 6 of the police districts, including their detective bureaus, the Bureau of Specialized Enforcement, which is SWAT, Mobile Reserve, Anti-Crime, Aviation, and our narcotics unit, and then our Bureau of Investigations, which is Homicide, Sex Crimes, Child Abuse, DART, Juvenile, and then our Bomb and Arson unit. So these officers do most of the work, but they do the front end of the work. So obviously these support units are important to us and we can't function without them, but working together is how we keep St. Louis safe. So our focus in the patrol divisions and in the Bureau of Operations each day is really violent crime, decreasing shootings, working on those shootings each day, and really lowering that violent crime. Each of the districts, we're proud to say, has seen a decrease in violent crime over the last year. District 1 saw a 15% reduction in violent crime. District 2 saw a 24% reduction in violent crime. Districts 3 and 4 kind of mirrored each other. They both saw a 17% reduction in violent crime. District 5 saw a 6% reduction in violent crime. And then District 6 saw a 17% reduction in violent crime. So each of those numbers are important to us. It's something that we study each day. It's what we study at each of our crime meetings each day, and then of course at our weekly ComStat meeting. While reducing violent crime remains a top priority for us, we've also seen significant reductions in property crimes. So each of the district captains, each of these area majors have also worked on property crimes. The Central Patrol Division, Major Benoist Division, he did do an enforcement detail in the month of October on the open air drug market that was widely publicized in the downtown neighborhoods, where they made 33 arrests relative to drug sales and other quality of life violations. They took a group of officers, they really went into that area, and I think that they've made that area safer. It's in a lot better shape today. We're proud of those efforts, they're proud of those efforts, and we thank the officers for what they've done for that neighborhood. Our Specialized Enforcement Unit, which is our Anti-Crime and Mobile Reserve units, of course, they recovered 208 stolen cars in 2025, and 70 of those were also wanted for other violent crimes. Our SWAT unit conducted 127 search warrants. Our Traffic Safety Unit conducted 5,449 traffic stops and wrote 12,828 traffic citations. Between the Traffic Safety Unit and all 6 police districts, there were over 23,000 tickets written citywide for traffic violations for both moving and non-moving violations. In addition to our crime-fighting units, we also have what we call our Operational Planning Unit, and our Operational Planning Unit is responsible for just these special events that the chief spoke of. So they do enforcement and visibility details every weekend in the downtown west neighborhoods. They are preparing now they did Mardi Gras last year, they're preparing for Mardi Gras this year. They did a detail each day after the May 16th tornado. They did the Frozen 4 detail, and then they have also prepared each year for the 4th of July details. So those details are important. It's important to bring people into the city. It's important for people to come to the city and have fun. And our operational planning unit ensures that when people come to the city, when they come to to any event in the city, that they're safe and that they enjoy their time here. So I think with that, I will give it back over to the chief, and I think we'll take some questions.
Well, thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonels. Great job in explaining a lot of things. But I know you probably have more questions on some things, so we're going to open up the questions at this time.
With the state takeover not fully in place yet, why would it still be needed with these successes?
Well, there's different type of governance. This is something that the legislators voted on. It was signed by the governor, and it's different things, different governance. This is what they wanted, and certainly the one thing I can promise you from coming from the administration, where part of the administration still is, the mayor serves on that, so has somewhat oversight over what's happening with the police department as it was in the past. But the Board of Commissioners right now they've also pledged, as you've heard the President Saraceno talk about, pledging to give all the support and try to help us improve on these numbers. And I can say, since I've been under both governances, right, they have allowed the chief to do the job that the chief needs to do. So right now, although we've transitioned to a different type of governance, I'm not going to get into the politics of that, but I will say that's why you're still seeing the numbers like that, because they have not asked the chief to do anything different, but just to try to get more support, how we can do things better, both from the mayor and now this new Board of Police Commission. So I can say up here, look you in the eye and say, they have given me all the support to continue to do the type of things that have got us to this place. So politics aside, there's different governances. I've worked for 3 other cities, different type of governances. There's nuances, and this is just a new way to do it. But I will tell you right now, there's been nothing short of incredible. The individuals you see in the back of the room, the president, and also the mayor is part of that board. So it's a little bit of a hybrid right now.
I have two. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Elliot. You talked about the number of guns recovered, but we saw an increase in the number of ghost guns that were recovered. Can you talk about the ghost gun trends that you guys are seeing, why more of those are being found in St. Louis?
You know, I've seen that in other cities, more ghost guns, because it was harder to get a gun. You need to get a permit and everything else. Here, we know we don't need a permit as long as you don't have a felony conviction. So I was surprised to see that number go up the way it has, the amount of ghost guns. It just shows you the amount of people and the access to the type of intelligence, AI, you know, the way people can access things with technology to make them, and then not have to worry about registering and having serial numbers. We still can track them, because each one of those, when we collect ballistic evidence, it still leaves a fingerprint, but we can identify that. We don't know it might be a ghost gun until we recover it, but we can attach that gun if it was used at different scenes. We know it came from the same gun. But it has gone up, and I believe it's the type of technology we have today. It's getting easier and easier for people to have home kits to be able to do this. And then if we work with our ATF partners on that, because we want to make sure someone's not selling or distributing them the same type of gun, because then it's even harder for us on the street to keep people safe if they're selling guns and they're used in some of the ways that we just talked about. And one of the things that Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Cousins hit on, this is not just about non-fatal and murders. We're collecting shell casings on, I call a failed shooting, or someone shooting at a stop sign, or celebratory gunfire. We are collecting everything, because today might be celebratory gunfire, tomorrow might be you're shooting at a person, and it might be a non-fatal shooting. And so that's helping us out. But I think it's easier because the technology is getting easier.
I have 2 questions for Mayor Spencer. My first question is, do you think the police department is more effective under state control since the Board of Police Commissioners have been established than it was before?
Well, I don't want to get into the politics either, but I will say that, I have always been strongly in favor of local control. I remain strongly in favor of local control. I think the chief pointed out, rightfully so, that the key to the success here is letting the chief do his job. And this board has been able to do that, and I'm appreciative of it. I do think it would be simpler. I know we've had to focus a lot on the governance. That's been a big challenge. It's been a big lift for the commissioners. It's a lot of time involved in setting the board up. And it's been a big lift for the chief. And in addition to running the police department, instead of having one boss, he's got a panel of them. And that's a big lift. I have to commend the chief for handling all of that additional load and still running an excellent police department. I remain strongly in favor of local control of our police department. I think the trends were evident before, and that's my position on the matter.
I'm sorry, the second of my two questions. You get a number of people who just aren't impressed on numbers. You release numbers all the time. Some citizens still don't feel safe, and St. Louis is still on the list of the most dangerous cities in the United States. How do you address those?
Well, I get that because we do have a lot of work to do, continue to do, as the chief said. But these numbers are clearly demonstrate that we are working in the right direction. And we're working quickly, we're working effectively, and we're working collaboratively. It's clear by the relationship between the police department and our Office of Violence Prevention, the police department, our circuit attorney's office, and the police department and the community. I think those are clearly relationships that are building, they're improving, and they're effectively driving the crime rates into the place where we need them to be for everyone to feel safer.
Mayor and Chief, the Save Lives Now initiative, are we seeing the impact of that yet in these stats and the work that the police department is doing here in the city?
I'll let the chief take it first.
It's in the early stages, Save Lives Now. So I think that's just going to add to one of the an additional tool in the toolbox. Setting up Save Lives Now and focus deterrence, you have to be patient with that, but if you're patient with it, you'll start to see the fruits, the success of the investment that you made. So that takes a while because you have to do a lot of analysis to identify the individuals that have the highest propensity of violence, not just in the city, but also in the region. So we're working with them, and those things are all being set up to start doing the group call-ins, custom notifications, all these things that we've done in other cities. So that takes a little bit of time, but when we're doing the analysis, it actually is additional intelligence for us to work with. So maybe we're missing something that we're actually working with academics and we're working with crime information that makes sure it's always good to have a second set of eyes, and especially from that group that might actually show something that we're not seeing. So I think in early on it's having a success, but the biggest success is the things that will build off these things that you're talking about, Elliot. These things, I just want to, when you talk about crime and you're saying people are not feeling it, in the late 80s and 1990s, New York City had 2,465 murders for a city of 7 million people at the time. Right now it's less than 300 in a city of 8 million. That didn't happen overnight, but I was part of that process where nobody said it can get done. But it started like it started here. Was there progress? Did we start to see things coming down? There's skepticism, as always, as far as perception. And it should be. We should be held to that accountable. But when you start seeing a line of success that we're seeing over a course of years, you have to acknowledge it. And I think the biggest issue right now, we're used to having 1,300 police officers. That gives us a little more omnipresence. That makes people feel safer. But crime is going down, but when we get more officers on the street. If you take a look at Wilmington, Delaware, I came into the same thing, same situation, same questions that you're asking, Elliot. People are not believing it. Well, I was there for 6 years, and now it's 9 years out. That city is a boom town now because of what started where people were skeptical, held us accountable, but it took time. It's not going to happen overnight. This thing, it didn't get here overnight where we're at, and it's not going to, and so, yeah, perception takes a long time to catch up to reality, but if those numbers were going in the other direction, I think you guys would have a lot more questions for us. Why are the numbers going up instead of going down, right, in all fairness?
You all had talked about staffing as being a challenge. What does staffing look like for 911 dispatchers right now? Is that still an issue?
A few years ago, with staffing with 911, we had problems with pay. There was different scales of pay for the 911 call takers and dispatchers. Then there was EMS and then there was fire department. We had 3 layers, and then anytime there was an opening in EMS or fire department, naturally they're trained, they moved up into those positions. So we had to kind of, as a minor league, they weren't minor leagues, they did most of the work, but we recruited people into that position, the pay was lower, and then they moved up. We've since corrected that as far as trying to make somewhat the pay even so we can be more competitive. And then at some point, we were way down. We saw all the reports a few years ago. We are now closer to, it's always moving, it's dynamic, but we're close to almost 90%, close to 90% of where we should be at budgeted strength for the member, where we were less than 50% a few years ago. And then the calls for service right now, we're closer to the national standard as far as picking up the phone and answering it at the 911. You got to remember, police dispatchers, they pick up every phone call and they dispatch it to the other dispatchers from fire and EMS. So they're taking everything in. So could you imagine the amount of work that they're doing? Really proud of the work that they've done, what they did through the EF3 tornado, how they do things on some of these crisis incidents that they're directing our officers. They do a tremendous job, and I know, and Lieutenant Colonel Cousins oversees that and makes sure that we have the training for them. We continue to recruit, and then as we move over towards our own HR, I think we can streamline some of those things, because instead of 50 departments, who do we prioritize, where do you fill? We only have 1 department that are under our own HR department, and that goes with recruitment and bringing police officers in. So the board is looking to make that move to bring our whole HR over and a director of HR, and then we are not under the charter and also the civil service rules, although we have a fair hiring process.
While we're talking about staffing, you just mentioned with the line graph having some of the lowest numbers of commissioned officers.
Mhm.
Can you talk about where you stand right now with the number of commissioned officers and what full
I-
budgeted strength would be?
I looked at the numbers the other day, so that's dynamic. 871, that includes the 26 recruits that are in the academy right now. That's the way I've been reporting it out. When I first came here 3 years ago, it was around 990. So we've lost, we've had net loss. We're bringing in academy classes, but we're not losing at the rate we used to lose. We were losing people to other professions, losing before 20 years. Everything's kind of stabilized. I think we did get a historic raise in 2023. We got a 7% raise last year, but we still are not as competitive as our surrounding areas. And those are the things that we're looking at with this board as far as where can we get the money within our budget to give these officers raises. And that makes us more competitive. This patch right here, right now, that's our biggest recruitment tool. It's a storied history, a proud history of a St. Louis Metropolitan Police officer. It's just the way it is. And that's getting people back in. Over 40 officers have come back to this profession that left for other jurisdictions. We trained, and they've come back, and I've sworn them back in since I've been here. That shows the people morale, although economics is going to other places because of economics, it also shows what we can offer and the type of work that we can do here. We're bringing them in, we gotta maximize that, and I think that's the idea going forward. That HR team that I talked about is not encumbered by some of the old rules that the city had. It's no one's fault. Those are the rules that are codified and written. We now can streamline a lot of that stuff to hopefully get more people into the pipeline, to get more officers into our police academy. And that's the plan we're looking to do. And that's one of the differences. I think I was asked, what can the board do where the city wasn't able? The city, it's not even, the mayor didn't write the rules. Those are the rules we have to go by. But there are different types of hiring processes that can make us more efficient.
So was 990 the total budgeted strength?
No. It was, you gotta look back. In 2022, it was 1325 budgeted strength. In 2023, it got moved down to 1225, and then last year it went to like 1125 was the budgeted strength. But the police board under the statute can now, we're keeping that number right now as a point of reference, but the police board has the authority through the statute to change that number as well, what our needs are.
President Saraceno, can you just jump in and talk about, from the board's perspective, what you guys will be working on this year to try to get those numbers up?
Do you need me to?
Yeah, if you don't mind, that way we can all, listening at home, hear you.
Absolutely. As you saw today, there was this department, along with the command staff, has shown a true transparency of what goes on, and it's based on the work of the men and women. That's what we have learned as commissioners of what is happening on a day-to-day basis. We are committed to find the budgeted dollars to be able to bring more officers to the street, and also to bring us up to a competitive rate along with that of St. Louis County or other jurisdictions that we compete with, to bring our officers back to this department. So we are working on that through our budget. And you know, we got appointed in July as we had a meeting in August as well. We were shelved for a little bit. Now we're back into the process. We'll go through our confirmation process here this month. So, but we have committed thousands of hours of looking at every aspect that makes this department click and what we can do to find the efficiencies in that. And finding the efficiencies will also find us dollars in order to bring that back to hiring more officers, which I'm a citizen of St. Louis City. I would like to see a police officer drive down my street every 10 minutes. I mean, that's visibility. That's our goal, trying to find that. So the chief's strategies, and this, I cannot, you know, part of this, being a part of this board, the command staff that is here, the dedication they've had for so many years to this department, and the institutional knowledge that is here, we are on the right path. It's just finding the resources that we have the ability to do, so they can continue to do their jobs and continue to deliver these and bring the numbers down. To the question earlier, you know, perception, as the chief said, catches up a little later. But we are working very diligently to find the money, find the resources, as a collaborative effort to bring more officers to our street and to support them.
This was the number one thing Governor Kehoe tasked you guys
Correct.
with when you took over.
Correct.
Do you have a number in mind by the end of the year where you'd like to be at, or when you'd like to start finally seeing those unfilled positions start to trend back the other direction?
Well, of course, we have a goal of what we're going to do, but those will come through the chief to us in order for us to deliver. If he would love to see us bring an X number of people, whether it's on the street, in the support roles, how that looks, we will work to find the dollars, to find what we can do to bring that number up. And that directive comes through the chief, and for us to help support. As I said, we as a board are continuously to support what they're doing every single day running this department and driving the numbers that we are driving.
Chief, what are the, I'm sorry.
Do you have a goal, Chief? Do you have a goal where you'd like to see things at by a certain point, or a certain number you'd like to be at by a certain
There's not a chief in the country that says, give me less officers, right? So this is a crisis throughout the United States. I go away to national conferences with other chiefs, major city chiefs. It is the number one issue across the United States. How do we bring more officers into this profession? There's hiring bonuses, you know, in some jurisdictions of $50,000, and they still can't get up to budgeted strength. So I think this is going to take time. It's not like we can just hire someone off the street and put them right in uniform. It takes almost 18 months to get a person out where we feel we're evaluating to keep them safe, to make sure they're doing the right job, and we evaluate them to be the right police officer. From the application process to the academy, and then a year's probation where we have a training officer with them, and then we let them work by themselves and evaluate for another 6 months. So that's the whole thing, is we're always behind. We're 18 months behind. If we can be in a place where we start to get some of that, where we start to become more competitive when it comes to the economics, I told you, we already got the patch that I think makes up for a lot of that, but if we can get the economics and the storied history and the morale going up, officers making arrests, and now that all these cases are being seen, and that 8,000 arrests out there that would never been seen, talk about demoralizing, talk about having a list that nobody knew what it was, a Brady list, talk about use of force, where that should be signed off, it's justifiable, hanging over officers' heads for 7 years. All that's gone. We've worked on that with our circuit attorney, with our partners, and even with the board on some of these things that have been hanging out there. And people are saying, hey, St. Louis is a great place to work. We can help most of the people, the camaraderie and the things that it can offer. Now we get that economics up. I can't give you a number. Sean, it's very difficult. You know, you'll hold me to it. Perfect world, if I had 300 officers in my back pocket, or someone just pulled up with a bus, I'd put them all in the academy right now, ask the permission of the board, which I know they would say, get them in the academy, and then we could train them. We'll find a way. If I can get 300 officers, I'd put them in right now. So it's not that I have a number, but hopefully this is going to take time. And as we have to wait every 6 months, or people to get out, it takes 6 months to get out of the academy. We have natural attrition that happens in every department. Listen, I retired almost close to 24 years, you know, and then I went on to other police departments. You're not leaving. Some people just leave because there's other options. We have people retiring just the other day that have 30 years, 25 years. So we have natural attrition that happens almost every other day. And then you have to wait 6 months. So it's fits and starts as far as where you're going to see. I can come back and say we have 900 officers. Say, Chief, you had 971 because we put a new academy class in. And that's the way it's going to be. That's look at nationally. I look at every police department in the United States. If they're doing well, sometimes it really comes down to the pay. Our counterparts across in Kansas City right now, they keep hiring. They're getting bigger hiring classes, but they start out at $12,000 to $13,000 more starting pay, and their top pay is about $15,000 to $20,000 more than our officers here. That's where we hope to be, and when we get there, the rest will follow. I'm not trying to avoid the question, but I'm just telling you, it's to put a number on it. We are doing everything possibly we can to bring those things back up. If we can get to 1,100, wow. If we can get to 1,300, if the board allows us to that ceiling, that's something that'll be a good problem to have if I come to them and ask them that question.
We do some scheduling stuff, just a few more minutes, okay, guys?
I have a question for either the chief or crime control strategies.
Come on up.
Just looking at obviously the positivity that we're reporting for this past year, you see that we're in 2026 now. Is there one main thing that you're trying to focus on in 2026 to make the city even safer?
Well, what I would say is the goal is to, the problem we have in policing is we're a little bit reactive. So the pattern and trends kind of dictate where our focus is on. If we have a significant business burglary spree, we're going to have to focus on that. I think what we're going to do primarily is stick with the consistency of looking at shots fired data, looking at the shootings, driving down that violent cycle. And working with things like Save Lives Now was brought up. These are going to be the tools that we really break that cycle of interpersonal violence that occurs in many of our neighborhoods. And so if we can bring down the shootings, we'll bring down the homicides. If we would work with Office of Violence Prevention, with Save Lives Now, our outside partners, whether they be substance abuse, homeless, working on these, because a lot of these issues are bigger than just the police department. The police department just happens to be the persons that you have access to 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, and we answer the questions, we answer the call. We're going to keep driving on each of those and slowly chip away and bringing those things down. Now, like I said, crime control strategies, we're looking for those emerging patterns and trends. So what I want to do is, hey, if I see 4 or 5 Hyundai cars being stolen, I want to make sure we're ahead of that before it's 50 or 60. We want to know why it's happening, how it's happening, where it's happening, and who might be involved. And that way, if we stop it sooner, we're not looking at a massive spike, which affects those CompStat numbers on the weekly, the 28, and the yearly basis.
Anybody
Really,
can
hold on,
answer
Elliot,
this.
hold on. I think this would be a really good opportunity for either Major Benoist or Major Marks to jump in. Crime control strategies identified 2 different trends in both Central and South Patrol last year related to gas stations and then also that open air drug market. Do one of the majors want to jump in and talk about how you work with crime control strategies to identify?
Sure.
Christie, come on up to the podium. Come on. Major.
Thank you.
Elliot, we'll circle back to you.
No worries.
So at the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025, there was a trend that we were seeing. People were stealing cars. They were taking valuables out of citizens' cars as they were at car washes and at gas stations. So one of the things that crime control strategies really helped us with is we talked about several days a week at our executive management meetings. We talked about it at CompStat, where all of our detectives are in the room, our detective sergeants, and they're listening and they're sharing information. And crime control strategies was tracking all of these, helping us look at the pictures, look at the videos. They were putting them together in packets, sending them out, communicating, getting information from intelligence back to the detectives, and they created a pool of information where we could actively utilize every single detective, every officer on the street was looking for cars, looking for people as they were analyzing this information and giving it to us and sharing it with us. And that led to several people, dozens of people arrested for car clottings and auto thefts. And someone mentioned, I think the colonel did, how many didn't occur after that. So I think the number that we saw and that decrease in we saw had a lot to do with that sharing of information, putting that information out, data mining, and that communication. So we are very grateful that I think we really saw that trend quell, and I think it was a large part of just the communication that was coming out and being analyzed and pushing it out quickly.
And additionally, search warrants were done after that. We found property in people's things, and then some of the individuals and their associates were involved in other violent crimes that led to us. So when they're doing violent crime, they're doing small stuff as well. So they're doing the easy stuff, the break-ins, and we were able to now attach to other cases, work with our counterparts in the county, because a lot of them were coming in and out of the county. This isn't just a St. Louis issue. This is a regional issue. And that's why sharing information with our partners, and when we talk about Save Lives Now, it's a regional issue. And that's why some of the stuff that we're doing is having that success, that communication, and then the little stuff led to the big stuff. And we got some violent people off the street that were involved in some very violent stuff, and then even some federal cases out of it. So it all started from several Kias or several vehicles being stolen. We got together, we didn't ignore it, we made sure we went after it, we built the case, and it went higher and higher, and then it led to some violent people being taken off the street.
Yes, sir.
Chief, my final question, what are the major causes of homicides in St. Louis?
Well, I can tell you, but I'd like my my subject matter expert. We're all good at this. We get the reports out. I'd like to have Lieutenant John Blaskowitz from the Homicide Squad. John, you can talk about some of the stuff. Come on up, because I'll steal some of your thunder right now. Because him and I do talk about this, but let's hear it. Let's hear it for the guy that dives into it every single day and does a tremendous job. I've worked in 3 other police departments, and I've had to deal, and I've worked in investigations. And he's one of the most professional, one of the top homicide lieutenants that I've ever met and had a pleasure to work with and an honor to work with. John?
Thank you. You're asking a very difficult question for me to pinpoint.
Interpersonal.
If I knew the main cause of it, we would be working to eliminate it, but each case varies. I mean, we had several children murdered last year. We have domestic violence cases. We have drug disputes. It's a range of causes, and to pinpoint one is really just too difficult for me to put my finger on. I hope that answers it.
I mean, gangs,
Can I add to that?
what?
Sure.
John doesn't want to compromise an investigation. That's who he is. Listen, there's a lot of interpersonal. I think it also a lot has to do with the accessibility of guns in this city, where people settle a lot of disputes where, because everybody does have a gun, they go to this, and the interpersonal skills or their conflict resolution skills are not very good, and then they start shooting each other where you're surprised. Why would they start? We even have siblings that do this, right, John? Where that would have been a fist fight in the old days. Everybody's got a gun in the house, and because of emotions. We have a lot of domestics that are going on. There's so many things that can happen, but I think the accessibility to firearms here more than any other place, not that that doesn't happen in other places, but I'm saying we are seeing that. I see more interpersonal conflicts. We do have our disputes where people have territorial, there are narcotics, there are domestics, but I just see some of these things that these are online conflicts on social media. There's things that are going back, and it naturally, if the firearm's not involved, it's usually somewhat of a domestic that we're dealing with. So if you look at our report, we try to pinpoint the motive or the reason that it happened and the relationships. We do have a homicide report that's put out every day online. We're not perfect. We have to speculate, but we do put whatever we can on suspect information, victim information, and then we try to identify that. But that's why each case is different. That's why we keep the homicide division is always at budgeted strength. I don't care how low our numbers get, because it's so important that they have the time to do these cases, to bring justice to these families, and make sure that person doesn't go out and reoffend. And that's why you see in a case 84%. Wow, that's pretty incredible. And it was the same way last year. And because of all the work that they're doing, and that brings justice to families. We try to prevent the first homicide from happening as we try to get after the trigger pullers. But certainly when it does happen, when John Blaskowitz and the detectives are on that case, 8 out of 10, and it should be about 85%. We rounded it up, but we'll keep it at 84, 83. These numbers are pretty good. It's unfortunate that we have to talk about these numbers are good, but it's a natural part of what we do. And then that person's not out reoffending. Because if a person's going to take somebody's life, they might take somebody else's life after that as well. We want to make sure that we prevent the next one and retaliatory things that Lieutenant Colonel Lawson talked about. John, anything else you want to say? You got to close it out. Yeah. Close it out with this, with the work with the detectives.
Yeah, I would just like to highlight the work that my detectives have done. The amount of search warrants they put into every case is tenfold what it was 10 years ago. Social media, cameras, cell phone technology has all required more search warrants than ever before. They have to wait for returns on these search warrants from our technology companies, which takes more time. But with the pace that they're operating in, you know, I used to estimate that between 2 and 3 months was the average turnaround before a detective inherited another case. As long as these numbers continue to drop, they will have more time to not only work on their current cases, but to go back and take a second look at these cases that remain open. And that's what I'm optimistic about, is that we could use this time to take a second look at other cases that parents are calling me about, to try to help close some of our historical cases.
Do you find
Okay,
that judges
Elliot,
cooperate?
we have Megan
Sorry.
and then Sean, and then we have to wrap up.
Okay. Do you
Megan and
find
then
that,
Sean.
I'm sorry, Mitch. I didn't-
Megan and then Sean. We have to
Yeah,
wrap up.
I have a question relating, for 911 calls. So over the past year, a number of people have claimed that they called 911 and nobody responded. So can you walk us through just how each 911 emergency call is evaluated?
You want to do it? Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Cousins is going to answer that question. I can answer it.
I'm just messing
But I
with
want to
you.
give you some
No,
freestyle.
so man, when the calls come in, as you were aware, we have call takers. So the call takers take the calls, and then they evaluate them and send them to a dispatcher. Depending on how many call takers we have at a time, the call wait may be longer or shorter. Sometimes people call in, and then if a call taker doesn't pick up after a certain time, they hang up. And those are what we call abandoned calls. So once those calls are processed, if a call taker sees that somebody hung up, we make those callbacks. Now, for some reason, sometimes people don't answer those calls, or by the time that they do call back, they may have a notification where they press a button and says, hey, police is no longer needed. But each call comes in that they get, it's evaluated and then sent on to a dispatcher. For instance, we may have a call that's require EMS or it might require police response. So they have to evaluate those and send them to the proper response personnel.
Do they have different priority levels?
Yes, ma'am. We have priority 1, 2, and 3. So if somebody gets shot, that's a priority 1 call. So that's answered immediately, and we send that to the police officers. If somebody say they're having a heart attack, we evaluate it, send it to EMS. So they ask pretty much, what response do you need, and we provide them that response.
Yeah, sorry, can you go over each priority level?
Priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. So priority 1 is pretty much a code 1 call where assistance is needed immediately. For instance, if somebody gets shot. A burglary would be a code 3 call where police is not needed right away and we could wait for that response.
But an in-progress call is like,
It's a
if
code.
a kid, and we can always evaluate.
Yeah, upgraded it if we get more information.
Sean?
Either Chief or Major Benoist, I believe it was Major, I forget your rank.
Right.
Excuse me. One of you guys could comment on the downtown open-air drug market, since that was mentioned. Are making street-level arrests with those still a priority of the department at this time? Or
Yeah.
is it more?
Major Benoist. Major
investi-
Benoist will ask that question, answer that question.
Is more
Hey, guys, I'm sorry, we have to
investigative
wrap up.
focus?
I'm sorry, what was the
So
question,
the
please?
downtown open-air drug markets,
Yes.
that was a focus earlier, but is making street-level arrests still a focus with that? Or is it more back to the wait-and-see investigating side?
No, it's every day. It's, you know, we have bike officers down there, and then we have officers also coming in to work downtown details, and also on overtime to address, you know, not only downtown, but other parts of Central Patrol where's needed, where we're seeing an increase in narcotic sales or shots fired calls and stuff like that. That's where we, you know, designate our officers to. Not downtown does seem to get a lot of attention, downtown west as it should, but there's other parts of Central Patrol that we send the officers to when we see a spike in this stuff. And they are out there every day trying to address the unhoused, working with the city, and the drug sales.
All right, guys, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.